Welcome to another episode of Unsetting Expectations. This is issue number 7, named Why Stop When You Are Done is Horrible Advice for Perfectionists, and 3 tips on what to do instead. If you're new here, you can join us every Thursday on a fortnight by hitting the subscribe button below or following the podcast, or if you somehow managed to stumble upon this YouTube channel and the podcast but prefer writing, you can subscribe to the newsletter in the description box below. Let's get started. Are things ever actually done? Sure, a meal might be eaten and hence it's done, but that doesn't mean that the recipe couldn't be improved for the next time. As a perfectionist, I always see the next step forward, another thing to add, something to improve, value to add. Hence, stop when you are done could very easily be the most horrific piece of advice one might get. Even worse, such advice is popularized and praised upon by our hustle and grind culture. When you feel never enough and that your value is tied to your business success, you're never done. You never will be. A major root problem of perfectionists' overwhelm is exactly the concept of done. There's always work to do, app features to improve, campaigns to plan, new business ideas to pull through, emails to reply. The issue with this is that we don't know where the finish line is. And when this is the case, the finish line most often becomes our own major burnout. You know, that lovely feeling of hitting a breaking point and having a nervous breakdown because your brain doesn't have the capacity to make the simplest of decisions, such as whether to take a right or a left turn on the crossroads in your evening dog walk. Of feeling exhausted all the time, going to bed tired and waking up tired. Basically, feeling like you're in a vegetative state with zero capacity to do just about anything. If we follow the stop when you're done thing, we'll simply stop each time burnout catches up with us, which now makes it chronic. To make it even worse, we'll sit and think to ourselves how a couple of days of doing nothing will somehow magically fix us. But that's not the case. And what do we do then? We simply continue where we left off. We don't stop because we are not done. And what happens then? The ultimate burnout. Ending up in the hospital burnout, losing your mind burnout, losing yourself burnout. The longer you work without stopping to rest, the greater the consequences will be. It took me a full year to partially recover from my decade-anticipated burnout, and I'm still at some 70 to 80% of my capacity. For the first 6 months, I couldn't read the sentence and conclude what it was about. The words simply didn't appear in my brain. I was brain dead. I felt brain dead. Even though I was not consciously following stop when you're done advice per se, I was certainly living it. What's worse, I knew burnout was coming and I intentionally put it off. There'd be signs throughout the years, minor signals in specific situations, and I'd simply put up more work so that burnout can't find the time to get me. I was too busy for burnout. How naive I was. I did that because all the stress, the chronic migraines which lasted for days on and returning week after week, finding out that wrong line. I did that because all the stress, the chronic migraines which lasted for days on end and returning week after week, feeling sick to my stomach, was all much more tolerable than allowing the burnout to get me. Because I knew it won't come alone. There'd be years-old demons coming with it too. My epic burnout was finally triggered in March of 2020, so last year, after suffering through a heartbreaking family situation, finding out that the loving relative of mine from far away is getting really sick. And with the pandemic on our hands, I can't fly to visit as I planned even before finding this out. And a couple of earthquakes that have literally shaken us. It wasn't a slap in the face, it was a knockout. That's why I made a conscious decision to not to try to fight it, not to feel bad about it, but rather to welcome it with my arms wide open and the accompanying demons as well. Like this. Let go. This newsletter is one of the ways I'm doing that. I have a couple of tips to share with you, other than don't listen to that stupid advice, which continue to help me come to peace and almost melt with my perfectionism while also taking care of myself and my mental health. Advice number 1: define your finish lines. In order to truly stop when you are done, you need to define a real and healthy finish lines for yourself. How many hours will you work in a day? I recommend maximum of 6. What's the earliest you'll start? What's your cutoff going to be? Advice number 2. Not work. No more work. Advice number 2. Schedule in breaks. I took the what doesn't get scheduled doesn't get done to heart and have put all of my breaks for each and every day in my calendar. This stops me from filling out the available time in my day with more work, because that time is now reserved. It's booked. Doesn't exist. And here's a pro tip. Name the break events with action verbs, such as walk, run, dance, or drink. Advice number 3. Force rest every 14 to 21 days. Because I'm extremely passionate about everything I do nowadays, I can get easily swept away by the magical happiness and charm of working on something I love, which leads me to not feeling like I need rest at all. Newsflash, I do. You do. To hack this, I have a recurring calendar event every 17 days that says day off. I did every 17 days because for me, 14 came too quickly, while 21 is too long. Test and experiment what works best for you. So here you go. Those are my 3 pieces of advice of how I am trying to tackle and lower and live with my perfectionism. And I think this paired with the Kaizen approach that we talked about last time is going to do wonders for you. And if you realized throughout this episode, and I'm sure you did, I don't edit this. I don't edit the video, I don't edit the audio, because that's the spirit of Unsetting Expectations. I will make mistakes. I'm not a robot reading this. I'm not a professional journalist, and even they make mistakes sometimes too. Just a lot less than I'd. And that's the magic of really trying not to be perfect, and not to feel heavy because of the mistakes that I did. I think they are sometimes sweet and charming, and it just goes on to prove that we don't need to edit our lives and ourselves as much as we think we do. And I'm going to leave you with that. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.